awkward question. Do you find you pass gas more often based on where you are? Like, does it happen more frequently when you're in Denver than when you're in Lakewood? Because 3 cities in Colorado are taking steps to alleviate excess gas. And our Marshall Zellinger found Aurora is also looking for relief.
Coming soon, a new gas station near Alameda and Sable in Aurora, right next to a gas station.
We wanted to look at a way that we could potentially just sort of rein it in a little bit so that we don't have gas stations on every single corner.
Aurora City Councilwoman Amy Wiles said her constituents pitched the idea for Aurora to join Louisville, Lakewood, and Denver in restricting where new gas stations can be built.
They feel like it's bringing sort of a stigma to our city that we're a city of gas stations and not much else.
Aurora allows gas stations on 2 of the 4 corners of an intersection, and the next closest one has to be more than 500 feet away.
I mean, I don't like gas stations all over the place either. You know, sometimes they pop up and you're like, why is one there? Because there's one down the street.
In a council committee meeting today, Councilwoman Francois Bergen questioned the types of mandates the city should put on potential businesses.
I think we should do something. I'm just concerned if we're being too nanny state.
Louisville was the first city to limit new gas stations. It has 6, might allow a 7th. And if any of the 6 remodel, they would need to add electric vehicle charging stations. In Lakewood, a new station has to be half a mile from a current station, and the new ones need at least 3 EV chargers. Last year, Denver limited new gas stations within 1/4 mile of an existing station or a light rail station, and they can't be close to residential neighborhoods. But there are exceptions for gas stations attached to grocery stores. Aurora is still riffing on what restrictions it could vote on.
If a grocery store is included, then they could have their gas station. That's fine. It's the proliferation of standalone gas stations throughout the city that we were trying to slow down a little bit.
Nothing was decided today. More research is needed. There was someone in the meeting that warned about too specific of regulations because maybe Aurora would want a place that would have 4 gas stations on each corner near the airport. But the regulations being considered would not impact the commercial areas of Aurora that are near DIA.
Certainly understand where places are coming from, but at the same time, if that's what the market will bear, then that's what the market will bear.
Bergen pointed out how these other cities are trying to mandate EV chargers. She's like, why should we do that? I'm sure the business might see the need for that on their own without us telling them they need to do it. Who are we as the city to say you must do it when the consumer might say, hey, you should probably have this.
It is fascinating, though, in Denver, where they're like every gas station is a place where people could live, right? When they're so focused on that aspect of it. All right, Marshall Zellinger, thank you. Democrats at the state capitol want to penalize big businesses who pay their workers so little that they end up on Medicaid, costing taxpayers money. Their bill would force large corporations to pay annual fees of more than $2,000 for every low-wage worker on Medicaid. Medicaid is by far the largest expense in the state budget, and Colorado's looking at a $1 billion shortfall it must close. The state is required to have a balanced budget. So this fee would only apply to companies with more than 500 employees, and companies could be exempt from the fee if they prove they already provide affordable health coverage to their employees. The bill made it out of committee on a party line vote today. Critics, including business lobbyists, say this is just going to lead companies to get rid of employees who are likely to rely on Medicaid, like people with disabilities. All right. Let me take you back to last summer when My Pillow guy Mike Lindell was on trial in Denver for defaming a former voting machine company executive. Lindell lost, but was happy that the judgment was only $2.3 million and didn't ruin his business. The former Dominion voting executive, Eric Coomer, won, but he wanted bigger damages to send a message to election deniers. Both of them ended going back to the judge to ask to change the dollar amount. And today the judge was like, no. So Lindell brought his rigged election circus to town last June, still peddling the false claim that Denver-based Dominion rigged the 2020 election against Donald Trump. A jury ultimately found that he did in fact defame a former Dominion exec. I get the feeling that federal judge Nina Wong is pretty over this case. So last year, we told you how she ripped Lindell's legal team a new one, fined them for submitting a legal brief that was drafted by AI and full of fake citations. Well, the judge says a recent filing from Lindell's team still miscites case law. She's threatening harsher fines and may refer Lindell's attorneys to their state bar associations for discipline. Well, get ready for hot lawn summer because Denver Water's planning how it will enforce water restrictions as they declared a state-1 drought today for the first time in more than a decade. This summer, Denver water customers can only water their lawns twice a week. House addresses that end in even numbers, you get Sunday and Thursday. Odd numbers, you get Wednesday and Saturday. They're also asking people not to turn on their sprinkler systems at all until mid or late May to try and preserve reservoir levels. The surcharge prices for high volume water users will be announced soon. Let's bring in 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi. We know that a hot day, not climate change, hot week, not climate change. How about a hot winter?
Yes, a hot winter, and also the extremity of this current heat wave. Now, climate change does not create the heat dome, the heat wave that we're underneath right now. It does make it more likely, A, and make it more extreme, B. So those are the ways that take away from what we're seeing right now. Climate change makes the heat wave about 3 to 5 degrees warmer, generally speaking, and that is not equal for each heat dome, heat wave. But what we're seeing right now, this heat wave, this will become more and more likely with a warming climate. Again, though, this is an important distinction. It does not create the heat wave. The heat wave is, in a sense, a bit of a natural cycle, but the intensity and the frequency of that heat wave, that is where a warming climate comes into play. And you can sort of see it a little bit here with a high temperature of 87 today in Denver. That is our warmest March temperature on record, the 4th time in the last 7 days that we have set a new all-time March record, 5th daily record high in the last 7 days. We broke our daily record at 9:50 this morning. Our low temperature, 54 degrees overnight, our warmest March low by far on record, and almost our warmest April low on record as well. Highs, 80s, 90s, Eastern Plains. We will get a cold front that moves through tomorrow that'll kick up our wind and bring us a few rain showers and maybe even a few rumbles of thunder tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. And then by Friday morning, it's going to be kind of cool. We may see some flakes up to about 6,000 feet. So we may see some snow for us up above 6,000 feet in the foothills in the Palmer Divide. Not much of accumulation, though. It's just, hey, a reminder that it is still March after all. And then we go right back to our regularly scheduled San Diego winter that we've been locked into all year long with temperatures back in the 80s for Saturday and Sunday.
Denver Summit FC plays their inaugural home opener this Saturday at Mile High. I'm taking my girls to see the first women's professional soccer match in Colorado. All of us together can help to open up the game of soccer to more young people, especially girls, who are also looking for ways to feel at home here. This week's Word of Thanks Microgiving campaign, your 303rd consecutive week, 303 represent, supports Soccer Without Borders Colorado. That nonprofit helps refugee and immigrant kids build connections and work on English skills and, yeah, play a lot of soccer in Weld County, in the northern suburbs of Denver, and in Aurora. Denver Summit FC recently helped out by buying cleats for all the girls in their program. Our donations will help fund their summer camps, where their current high school participants are hired as coaches and counselors, often their first job, so they can get experience to prepare for their futures in this country. Your average weekly microgiving campaign so far this year has raised $65,000 a week. That is the power of community. So once we finish funding their summer camps, and we're going to do that, our donations will go toward their girls' programming, expanding opportunities for girls whose families otherwise would not be able to afford to put them in a soccer program. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. Even $5 helps. That's how you've raised $18 million in microgiving. You know the deal. I'm never going to ask you to give to a cause I don't support myself, so as always, I'll match the first 50 donations at $5 to get us going. 7,500 of you have signed up to make a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. You put in your info one time, pick an amount of your choice. Each month, your donations automatically split among all the nonprofits we feature. And we've been seeing that add almost $50,000 per week to these microgiving campaigns.
It makes me feel good that we're making at least a bit of an impact, you know.
Started as a chore, now high schoolers are jumping at the chance to stock up their school's food pantry. And as Major League Baseball returns, a Coloradan prepares to pay tribute to a historic Latino baseball league. That's next. A school food bank in Westminster is helping to feed hundreds of families each week, but it is also changing the students who volunteer there. Our Evan Krugel shows us how community service has become something more.
Yeah, limes. Okay, we got limes. Good job.
Most high school teachers
Good. Go ahead.
want their kids in their seats.
So let's see if we can fit them in there so we can stack them. That would be amazing.
Ellie Baker
Yeah.
keeps this room moving.
I should count my steps one day, but it's good. It's a workout. It's good for us.
She's too busy to rest.
All right.
Moving thousands of pounds of food for students and families at Mountain Range High School in Westminster.
Okay, so we have celery, we have oranges.
Running this pantry
Oh, yeah.
requires plenty of hands.
Beautiful.
But getting students in the door wasn't easy.
It started with I was trying to figure out like how to get students involved and how they might be interested in this work. And so I was discovering that a lot of students maybe had community service that they needed to fill, but there was a lot of barriers to getting it done. And so they were looking for work and I was looking for help.
Help
It's pretty easy,
from students
very light.
like Jeremiah Minor.
Okay, I was dying moving those potatoes yesterday.
The sophomore ended up here after a choice he now regrets.
I got in a little trouble with theft at a Target, and I had to do a couple hours of community service, not too much. And it was after that, after my 5 hours was done, I just figured I'd keep going back.
And so what was happening was these students were coming in, and maybe it started to be court ordered, and they loved it. And they were immediately hooked. And so they'd come back every single week.
Jeremiah now works out here at least twice a week.
Should I get a bigger bag?
Yeah, let's grab a bigger one. Thank you, Jeremiah.
And he brought some friends along with him.
I mean, it just brought me joy. And I also like giving back to the community.
King Jones doesn't have to be here either.
So King, you grab that side.
But every week, he helps set up tables outside Mountain Range to dish out fresh food to 275 families. Meals he understands the importance of.
Some nights, it would be like really hard to find something to eat, you know. My mom wouldn't know if she could make anything, like if we would eat that night. And honestly, with Miss Ellie around, we make sure like we'll have a meal every night.
King and Jeremiah have no plans to stop helping.
Probably till I graduate, I'd say.
Jeremiah is one of more than 40 students who have now used the food bank to complete court-mandated hours. And Ellie says 70% have continued to come back.
I think it goes back to this sense of purpose and belonging, that it's something that they don't even know that they're looking for, but you feel it. And I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to create here is a sense of community. Yeah, beautiful.
Food banks are supposed to change the lives of the people they serve.
Perfect. Just like that.
This one is changing lives for everyone.
I'm glad I'm doing this, and it's gonna stick with me forever.
Okay, bye guys. I love you. Bye.
That food pantry now distributes around 10,000 pounds of food every week to students and families at Mountain Range and across Adams' 12 schools. Kyle, for a lot of these students, this started out as a requirement. Now it's just become a routine.
Isn't that powerful? I wrote down what she said, something they didn't even know they were looking for. Evan Krugel, thank you. When they couldn't play ball with their neighbors, Colorado's Latino farm workers made their own baseball league. Now, to make sure that history isn't forgotten. And I'll have a word about a legend of journalism in this town who just announced her retirement today. That's next. Baseball, America's pastime, has always been an escape for communities on the margins of America. As a new Major League Baseball season begins, we caught up with a woman in northern Colorado looking to preserve the history of baseball in her community.
People love baseball. And this is a part of history that so many people don't know about. So this is City Park baseball field. This is where they played. So the new project that we're working on is the Hispanic and Mexican baseball players that came out of the beat fields to play baseball. Back in the 20s or 30s, there was a lot of discrimination. The whites did not want to play with the Mexicans. And so they played teams up and down the Front Range that other Hispanic players that they wanted to play baseball as well. This is our vision for the monument. The player, we're really going to honor Lee Suniga. The 12 is his number that's on that jersey. But it's not only Lee Suniga, it's every other Hispanic that played ball back in those days. I just loved the idea. You know, I really feel like this is truly going to honor the people, the very Hispanics and Mexicans that we want to honor. This is history. I'm trying to preserve history. And so this is what we're trying to do, is shed the light on that history. Not only shed the light, but preserve it.
These plans haven't been finalized. City of Fort Collins says it's still working with Betty and others in the community to figure out how to best recognize the beat worker baseball players at the City Park baseball fields. It's the end of an era in Denver journalism, and I worry it's going to make our city a little less interesting. Westward's founding editor, Patricia Calhoun, is retiring in July, 49 years after she co-founded that alt weekly, which will continue with its current staff. Since 1997, Westward's taken on the city's most powerful figures and lifted up Denverites who otherwise might have gone unseen. 20 years ago, this newcomer to Denver found Westward to be the perfect mix of nostalgia for old Denver and hope for the future. A guide to what Denver was, is, and could be. Patty Calhoun embodies that spirit with her encyclopedic knowledge of Denver past and her bold ideas about how to keep Denver evolving. She also has two essential qualities of a great journalist. She is curious and she is unafraid. Longevity can turn even well-meaning people into know-it-alls, but you never get that from Patty. She always welcomes you into what she knows. And she hasn't let her deep understanding of Denver dull her curiosity, the not-so-secret to most good reporting. And Patty Calhoun is unafraid to call out powerful people when they're acting foolishly. She scrutinizes and criticizes out of love for Denver and its people. Her work, Westward's work, makes Denver's leaders more honest, its journalism less self-serious, and the city more interesting to anyone who cares to explore it. Take the annual Best of Denver edition. Her last one's out now. Each year, it is a must-read ode to the people and the places we love, and to those we never knew existed until Westward spread the word. She won't say it, but Patricia Calhoun is the best of Denver. Back with your feedback next. Denver Summit FC, the new women's pro soccer team, plays its inaugural home opener on Saturday. Let's celebrate by opening up the game of soccer to more girls in Colorado, in particular, refugee and immigrant kids. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to join me and a bunch of others in giving to the nonprofit Soccer Without Borders Colorado. They work with young people in Greeley, Aurora, Thornton, and North Glen, helping kids from refugee and immigrant families connect with their new community, make friends, learn English, play some great soccer, just feel at home in the place that is now their home. Gary writes in to say, Kyle, I knew I liked you, but your support of girls and women's soccer steals the deal. Stay strong and keep on. This Ross in Loveland writes in about our tribute to Patricia Calhoun, longtime editor of Westward, co-founder, who is retiring after 49 years at that alt weekly. I said she's got the two essential characteristics of a journalist. She is curious and unafraid. Ross says, may you remain perpetually curious and unafraid. You wear it well. That's kind of you to say, Ross. John says, I never watched TV. Now I watch every day. You grew on me. The good news is I can be surgically removed. We'll see you next time.